They're lying to you every single day, time and time again. Why is it that every single time I open my eyes and focus on Twitter, this is all I am seeing? Now that was dog poop, because you've got to be shitting me. Anyway, make sure you press that like button if you're enjoying these daily crypto videos. Take a look. Paul Gribble, the CLO of Coinbase, he's going a little bit of a tangent, right? Because Dave Michaels said the SEC files response in the Do Kwon lawsuit saying the judge erred in her XRP ruling and the agency is likely to appeal. The kicker, Ripple's reasoning is impossible to reconcile with all of these fundamental security laws principles. Quote, the SEC respectfully avers that Ripple conflicts with and adds baseless requirements to Howey and its progeny. Respectfully, those portions of Ripple were wrongly decided, and this court should not follow them. Judge in Do Kwon case is Jed Rekov. Now, there's so much to say. First of all, this attack of the SEC on the judge, which is a critical part of all of this, they're literally stating, hey, judge, you're interpreting the law wrong. Again, the SEC is not the one who makes rules. They just interpret the rules and following that, try to apply pressure via the form of lawsuits, where again, the judge decides basically what's right and what's wrong. But they're saying, you have it wrong. Yet I don't fully understand how they could insult her to her face so much and then say, hey, please reconsider. It's like, hey, you, please apologize to me now. It's like, what? You just spat in my face. I'm not going to apologize to you now. Isn't that kind of the way it's going? I mean, these appeals take years and nothing in the law has changed. They're working to change things, but they're basically only in favor of Ripple even further. Everything in Congress that's changing is in favor of what the judge ruled. So, or I guess some parts purely just in favor of crypto. And I really wonder what the SEC is trying to get out of it and how they dare to insult the judge this much by saying that she's wrong and that other judges shouldn't listen to this judge. What an insult. The courage you got to have to insult a judge to the face like that is insane to me. Then again, there are people who stand by the SEC who agree with them. But anyway, Coinbase came into state. This is the CLO, the chief legal officer at Coinbase. I'm not sure why I wasn't following him. If only the commission cited one case, any case, in which the level of howiness required varies based on the sophistication of the investors at issue. Tellingly, they don't, and once more argue policy over the law as it is. And John asked, how does Gary continue to claim the rules related to crypto are so clear if a federal judge sitting in the Southern District of New York was able to get it so wrong? He have it both ways. Again, because the point here being, Gary Gensler states that the rules are so clear. The judge exactly follows the rules and says, hey, this is what the law says. And then Gary Gensler comes into state, well, but it's a little bit more difficult than that, and you didn't do it right. But if it's all so clear and so simple, where a judge that took 2.5 years to decide something has it wrong following such clear rules, perhaps either the rules are not right or you're delusional. Well, I think the latter. And another question of ethics, I guess, comes up here that is along these lines here. Do we really want a judge to ask yourself, does my strict application of the Howey test, in this case, result in an outcome in 2023 that comports with a policy implication behind a 1934 statute? In a sense of, okay, let's just say she interpreted Howey a certain way that more conforms with 2023 and the way in which the case is ongoing. Do we really want her to stay completely stiff and go with the idea of whatever was going on in 1930, 100 years ago? I'm not sure about that, guys. I'm not sure. Anyway, John also had this to say, read footnote 13, people. The court holds only that a common enterprise existed between Ripple and the institutional buyers. The court does not reach the question of whether the common enterprise extends to encompass to other XRP holders, defendants Garlinghouse and Larson, the XP ecosystem, or any other entities. The common enterprise factor is even more difficult for the SEC to meet than the third factor of the Howey test. Even if the SEC was successfully appealing Judge Torres's ruling, all that happens is a remand, and Judge Torres will likely decide the SEC failed to prove the common enterprise factor between Ripple and XRP holders in the secondary market. Again, as a base, You can't claim as an XRP purchaser you expected Ripple yada 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 to do this in direct relationship to you because, well, you didn't know who you were buying the XRP from. So it's hard to enter into a common enterprise with somebody when you don't know who that somebody is that you're buying it from. Remember, the SEC flip-flopped its common enterprise theory 3 times, finally arguing that XRP itself represented the common enterprise. I think it's time people start accepting that the SEC's theory in this case was circular and conclusory, and that's why it lost, because they wanted to have too much and they ended up getting nothing. And again, there might be a new appeal from the SEC, an interlocutory appeal coming up within the next couple of days, perhaps today or tomorrow. John says we should see it this weekend. This was posted 12 hours ago, which over in America probably was somewhere at the middle of Friday. So like I just said, we should get a 10-day deadline or something like that, which means the decision of whether or not they appeal for an interlocutory appeal would be within a couple of days, and that could be juicy. Mostly on the basis that the SEC then stooped extremely low because, again, there's no point. And as well, all these lawyers have already stated, the SEC probably shouldn't do that because it will only hurt them more. And so if they do, I'd be very surprised as to how desperate they are. But does it really surprise anybody that the SEC is desperate? Because we all know an proper appeal could take years. But they might not want to wait that long. This interlocutory appeal, like all these lawyers stated, is just not that good of an idea. But they might be at the final straw, at the end of their straw, at the end of the line. Anyway, before we move on, guys, if you've not done it yet, check out BitGet. Link is down below. What you can get right now is a whole spinning wheel here. Basically, whatever of these tasks you proceed with or you do, you get yourself different spin tickets. And so spinning can get you some different cool rewards. It's just an exchange you use to trade on, but I also recommend you guys to just check this out. Get yourself a couple of different rewards for absolutely free. And also, guys, over on Bybit, which is an exchange that does require KYC, so you can't just easily VPN on this one, but you got yourself an $1,125 trade you can get by using the link down below. Just check it out for yourself. Again, 1,125 USDT you can trade XRP with, or at least open a contract with. Just check it out. The link is down below. I'd say it's pretty freaking juicy. And to continue on, John is going on a tangent. Until the SEC can cite a single case with the Supreme Court added Howey factor, requiring the judge to consider the level of sophistication of the investors entering into a common enterprise with the issuer-seller, or a factor that requires the result after the Howey application to be consistent with the policy considerations behind the 1934 Securities Act. The SEC lawyers sound just like the prima donna crybabies that they are. And Jeremy Hogan, as a response to all these guys who shared it, basically said, we'll cover that in a second. Let's just quickly see what James said first. In the XRP SEC whatever situation versus Terraform Labs and Do Kwon, the SEC has filed a pleading discussing the judge's decision in the SEC Ripple case, in which it states the SEC staff is considering the various available avenues for further review and intends to recommend that the SEC seek such review. The SEC says XRP ruling was wrong, signals it will appeal. To which John states that this was all expected from the perspective of how the judge ruled with the allegations the SEC made. And Ario has a good point and says, we're at a point where I'm convinced that people would sooner die than ever admit, ever even consider the notion that they might be wrong. I'm going to like that one because that kind of seems exactly what's going on. Gary Gensler and a lot of these guys at the SEC, they want to take this one to the grave, it seems. They're so huffing their own farts that they can't smell normal air anymore. It's polluted their brains. Jeremy said, heading into a settlement conference, an appeal is really the only ammunition the SEC has against Ripple. Of course, it says it will appeal. I don't think you can read too much into their statement one way or another. And what that means is, of course, they say they'll go into it because that's the only thing they got here, saying, hey, we're going to fight this tooth and nail. Because otherwise, how can you like convince the judge in the SEC v. Terraform case, against Luna and Do Kwon, that you shouldn't hold this judge's words too tightly because they're wrong. I mean, hashtag Friday Gary Gensler is always trending for a proper reason, right? I mean, Anyway, Yasin had something interesting to say as well. I think this was kind of funny. This is simply posturing by the SEC to get ready for negotiation with Ripple. When you're in a weak position, you have to bluff to appear to have leverage. But the reality is, as Freddie Riz said, Ripple is in the driver's seat and everyone knows it. I don't agree with him at all. Jeremy says spot on. I don't agree with him at all. I'd say Ripple knows exactly how strong of a position that they're in. And I don't think they're afraid of an appeal. I think this just shows weakness to the entire market. I don't think they're really holding themselves strong. In this case here, when you're in a weak position, you have to bluff to appear to have leverage. Well, I'd say that part is true in the sense of they're completely weak, they're completely destroyed, and the only option that they've got is to try and appear strong. try and appear as if they still can do something. But I don't think that that's to have a better position in negotiation with Ripple, because I do believe Ripple, again, are not dumbasses, right? They know exactly how much of a chance the SEC has to go for an appeal or win the appeal, etc., etc. And they probably have read deeper than anybody into exactly the judge's ruling, and they understand exactly whether or not the SEC even has a case and whatnot. Anyway, right now over on Twitter, there's a pretty interesting ongoing discussion about whether or not the SEC should appeal, whether or not people already thought they would, and what exactly the appeal would be about. Is it just to try and get more transactions to be deemed as securities, or is it that they shouldn't appeal or actually won't appeal because from that point on forward, they're binding this ruling a little bit more than they otherwise would have had? I mean, again, thinking about it from the perspective of the SEC trying to keep things vague, the moment that they appeal, things become even more certain because things are going to get more clarified. And so that's never in the SEC's best interest to make things clear, right? So why would they do that? It would seem that the most logical opinion or the side from them is to just try and ask judges in other cases to not take it too serious, but then not actually make it too serious themselves either. Because the moment they clarify things, this becomes a really uphill battle for them. And the whole matter of what would they appeal, again, that becomes another interesting question of, are they going to try and get XRP itself to be deemed a security? Or where exactly is their appeal going to lie on? Now, Bill Morgan says they probably won't do it in the sense of XRP itself being the security, but perhaps in terms of the programmatic sales being securities or something like that. But anyway, I'd like to refer back to one thing that I've seen a lot in cases like this and things of the sort, and it's ego. When you feel on top of the world, like Gary Gensler, they get a sort of arrogance. They get a sort of ego thinking, I'm right, and I'll get my right because we know what's right for the people. We do what's best, and we are the best. And in this case here, they've been outsmarted. They've been outbested. And the judge doesn't follow their logic because it's not logical. And the SEC just has an approach of, well, but we're in the right because we're the best and we're the ones that decide. But they're not. And I think also their ego is what's keeping the people on the regulatory front against them. And that's, I think, why the SEC lost their biggest battle. The idea that they don't have support from anywhere in Congress, anywhere, because all these guys, they're looking at seriously getting crypto rules made, while Gary Gensler still claims that things are so clear. Yet he clearly contradicts himself when he says the judge needs to further clarify things because, well, he's not clarifying things. That's one thing. And second of all, if it was so clear, then how could this judge ever have ruled on something that was not following their own opinion? Well, obviously, that's why the SEC said they made a mistake, but then you're still insulting the judge fully to the face and spitting in her face by saying, we think everything is clear. It is clear, yet you just completely did it wrong. And so clarify on it when at the end of the day, the SEC doesn't want to clarify themselves and doesn't want to sit down and talk to anybody, doesn't want to sit down and clarify on other things. Remember the Coinbase case, guys? Coinbase versus SEC? They asked, so what about all the other cryptos? Are those by definition also securities following your idea? And they said, we reserve the right to change our opinion on that in the future or to come back on that in the future. They try to reserve that right, meaning we don't know just quite yet. Let's see as time goes on. And that's basically their approach to everything, it seems. It's crazy. On the side, I will say again that there's another major event happening in a couple of days. Perhaps we see a major event in this lawsuit again with an appeal as early as this weekend, as some lawyers are saying. Again, I don't think it will be smart, but it could be coming up. But we also have got ourselves the FOMC meeting in about 4 days from now. I just want you guys to be prepared for that, as usually this stirs the pot up a little. It gets people excited, that gets the markets moving, gets money flowing. So again, guys, be ready for a massive move over on FOMC day. But at the end of the day, all I'll say is make sure that you've got your notification bell on for in case something crazy happens tomorrow. It could. Which is why I want you guys to be up to date and put the notification bell on. You can always skip the video, but you can never take back time. Put the notification bell on if you want to be up to date with everything that's going on. And I'll see you guys again in another crypto video later today.